James Gunn, you mentioned earlier, he's been saying a lot of things in interviews. And the first one being that he said all of season 1 is pretty much canon to the new DCU,
When
except for the
Peacemaker.
fact. Yeah, sorry. Season 1 of Peacemaker, all of it's canon to the DCU, except for the fact that he met the Justice League at the end of the show. And he says, we're kind of going to deal with that in season 2. I know originally he said not all or like a good amount of like Peacemaker wouldn't be canon. It seems like, things have changed and now it's like it seems like he's referencing a lot of what happened in season 1 of Peacemaker and like in I guess the upcoming properties. And so, yeah, the only thing that doesn't align is the Justice League at the end. So yeah, I'm sure it'll just be like, I guess in my head, it'll be like, oh, remember when we met, like it'll be like it'll be Superman, but like other, like, like Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific and, like the other people we saw like leaked on Superman's set. Like, remember when they came and like saved our ass or tried to save our ass? And
yeah, I mean, maybe it could be like Vigilante says like, oh, it's like this fucking Justice League losers. He showed up at the end. They couldn't help us out. And he's like, Justice League? No, that was like, yeah, I guess Superman might have been there, but it was, who's like Aquaman? No, he wasn't there. Like,
right. Maybe they'll call him like the Justice Society. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, on top of like the Peacemaker season 1, he was like, and if there's something that's referenced from Suicide Squad, like that's part of the canon.
Yep.
And we're gonna find out pretty soon, come December 5th, I think, when Creature Commandos comes out and they start referencing these things.
I can't believe that's like we're getting the start of the DC universe like in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah.
It is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I always thought like you can take all of Peacemaker season 1 and there's literally no reason to scrap that other than the Justice League bit.
Yeah.
Like everything else,
it's totally fine.
Didn't touch. It was pretty isolated. Like there's no connection to the rest of the universe.
Yeah.
I would like to imagine that there might be a smarter way to deal with that Justice League bit than just like, oh, you're not remembering it correctly.
Right.
But even if it's like no, what, that never happened. Like, I don't think that that's what's going to happen, but hopefully even if that's what happens, like there's a smart, funny way of dealing with it. But I do think that there probably is going to be some sort of story element that they deal with, because if you were just watching Peacemaker season 1 and then you were like, I want to watch Peacemaker season 2, first of all, you would probably never even have to acknowledge that scene, but let's say you needed to, like hopefully there'd be some sort of smart way of being like, oh wait, that never happened, so that never happened now, or like it happened, or like we recontextualize it and it's like, no, this is actually what happened.
Right.
We're moving.
These what showed up, or these were the people who showed up. Right. I think it would be neat, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for him to like have an alternate ending at some point to Peacemaker season 1 and have like the new like members of like the Justice League or like whatever this big group is like show up at the end and be like, this is the actual canon, what happened. And this is like, this whole season now, the way you're watching is canon to like the new DCU. I think that could be fun. I don't know. Maybe he won't ever go there, but I think it's possible.
It's possible. I mean, he has all the power.
He does. He really does.
He can greenlight whatever he wants.
Remember, like, I don't know. I think it was a couple days ago. He was like, yeah, I luckily enough with Creature Commandos, I wrote the whole thing before I became head of DC Studios. And then, I greenlit it myself because I'm a great head. So, I'm like,
I saw a great story.
Right.
Let myself do it.
I think it's neat though, that like he did write and make this originally for the old DCU. And so like, yes, it's like fully canon to this new universe. It's the start of the new universe, but like, it's interesting to think that like this could have fit in the old universe too, you know, for the most part. I'm sure there's going to be some like new things that he's added for the new universe, but
yeah, I mean, I feel like, if it was to, if it was to come out when it was still the DCU, I don't think that it would have been like an actual part of the DCEU.
Sure, because they didn't have that kind of mandate yet.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
I think you're right.
I could totally see it as just like another like Harley Quinn show where it's like it's its own thing,
right?
You know,
and we get to follow Amanda Waller again, but
yeah, and if you had Rick Flag Sr. in it, like you didn't have to talk about the Rick Flag Jr. Death of it all and the Peacemaker of it all, which I'm sure will get brought up at some point within the show.
Absolutely.
But then again, I could be wrong. Like maybe it would have been tied in loosely because you have Weasel, who's going to be brought over from the Suicide Squad. And I guess, I mean, like I guess I'd be curious to know like how much of it got written in like a part of like how much of it has now been changed to fit like DCU, because Amanda Waller like says like, well, the government said we can't do humans anymore, so now we're doing monsters. Like that was obviously a reference to James's Suicide Squad movie
and the end of Peacemaker. I mean,
right. And so would that have been a part of it? I don't know. You know, like
right. Because if it is its own thing, or if it was going to be its own thing, then obviously you wouldn't have all these references, right?
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
The new one does,
but the new one does. So but anyways, what I'm trying to say is, I think that this is, not the perfect way that a lot of people wanted, like a clean start,
right?
But in a business standpoint, and in a standpoint of like things that did work and people like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
if you were to
Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, right?
It would be like, now you could do like Peacemaker something, a whole new show. But like, I think like that would just be so disappointing.
Right. But I think you could have also made it an Elseworld story. You could have just been like, this is its own kind of part of the universe, and we're just gonna not connect it to anything. And here's the thing, like. Yes, these stories that he's bringing over are some of my favorite. Like Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are amazing stories from the old universe. It's just, I think a lot of us, and I still wish we could have gotten a fully fresh, clean start where we're starting at like ground 0.1 for the new DC universe. And like, would that have meant maybe never getting more Peacemaker? Yeah, like that would have been very unfortunate, but like new beautiful things can come from it. And so I don't know. I don't hate it, but I'm not like necessarily loving the fact that we're like pulling things from the old universe.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to enter a universe where Captain Boomerang is shredded by into splinters? Are we entering a universe where who else kind of died a gruesome, terrible death in that movie? Like, are we going to have that backstory?
Polka Dot Man died a gruesome death.
Yeah, like, are we going to have that backstory of Harley and the Leto Joker, like her
because like
on a break, like she's already broken up with him. Like
the Suicide Squad picks off like it's very much a sequel to the original, and you're like, well, technically that would be the starting point of the DC universe.
Yeah, so it's what I'm imagining it as, and like it is gonna be already like a head fuck for anybody who wants to get into the DCU. In a way,
no, you're right. Yeah.
In a way, is well, if it gets referenced in this show,
then it's canon.
Then it's canon. But then, like, so it's like you can watch those movies and they are technically canon, but bits of them aren't. But bits of them are.
Like, yeah, just explaining that, someone's gonna be like, I'm fully not interested. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, like at work today, one of my coworkers was saying, we were talking about how her daughter was recently getting introduced to Star Wars, and somebody was like, "Oh, that's really cool," but like, then it's like, well, when you start watching them, it's like, was this in the past? Was it in the future? It gets all confusing. And to me, I'm like, no, it's very easy. I can explain it.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, even me, I'm like, well, so the Justice League wasn't actually the Justice League, or that didn't actually happen. And like, Harley from this movie is like the same Harley that shows up later, but now like that whole thing with her with the Joker, like they're actually together now, or whatever they end up doing. Like,
right.
So I don't know.
It could be a mess.
Yeah. But I have faith because it seems like there's a plan.
There is.
And I hope when he says they kind of address it, they might not actually like fully address it. It might just be like a glance over, but we'll see.
No, that's what I'm worried about too. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They have a plan. He knows how to run a studio. Like the other piece, that he kind of mentioned was that like whatever movie comes up for us, like we're going to apply like it be a rated R or it be rated PG-13, or this is like it will be suited for the medium and the story. And yeah, so like obviously that's great. It's not like let's just keep all this for kids like the MCU has done up until Deadpool and Wolverine.
I think that's
no, but you know what I mean. Like they have refused to do an R rating until Deadpool and Wolverine, and so they're trying to keep all the kid audiences in there as long as possible.
Right. I mean, but they're also owned by Disney.
Right. So yeah, Warner Brothers is going to have a little bit of a different take on that, and
which I think is really smart. There's nothing that they're necessarily, holding themselves back from creatively, right?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it. There's the aspect of like, hopefully it is more of like, well, if this suits PG-13 more, we'll do PG-13. If it suits R, then it will do R. Like we're not going to be beholden to it. And I do think that's something that can be really interesting and what can set the DCU apart from the MCU in a really interesting way. And you already see it with like the Elseworld stories that they do.
Yeah.
They've been, at least for like a second there, before Joker 2 for most people, were like a big hit and were very interesting takes. And we need stuff like that. Like you look at the Absolute series that they're doing with the comics, and they're really big hits and they're really interesting. And not that Marvel doesn't have that, but I don't think that I don't know. Like I still feel like they kind of still play in this more animated world, or like more upbeat world in a sense, which isn't bad. Like I like that in DC as well. And I think there needs to be a balance. But what I was interested in about them going that route is, I was thinking today, one of the things that like in the MCU, what they used to do is you would be able to jump into any movie and basically be able to watch it and not have to have the context around it until we got to like Multiverse of Madness and until we got to like the Marvels and stuff that was like, okay, well, you should have watched this TV show and you should have watched that.
Even the Avengers movies before that.
But sure. But I think I still would argue, and I think that there's been multiple people who have gone to see those movies who are first-time MCU viewers who watch those movies. And yes, you're missing a lot of context and backstory. Right. But you can watch those movies and you understand who this character is, you understand who this character, or you get the gist of who they're supposed to be.
Right.
And I think with the fact that there will be some movies that are like, don't bring your kids to this, kind of reinforces the fact that like, okay, we have to treat these movies like somebody is stepping into this universe for the first time.
Yep.
And we're also not gonna throw things in there that like, for context's sake, other people who enjoy these movies will pick up and understand, have a deeper appreciation for. So
there will be a through line. Like you will see like the story continue throughout the universe. It just won't be like so in your face every single movie.
Right.
It'll be focused on the story at hand, and then we'll move on to the next story at hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, just from even starting out with an animated show, which right off the bat, not everybody's going to watch that because people treat animation like it's like a kid
second class,
or it's second class.
Yeah.
And even though this looks very adult, and that's the other thing. It's not only just animated. It's like a very graphic looking show.
Right.
And so there's, you're going to want people to still come out in droves for when they eventually do like a Justice League movie or like when they do the Superman movie. Yep. But you're gonna have Rick Flag Sr. and Superman. Maybe there'll be words exchanged there or something that happens in that movie that references back to Creature Commando. So somebody can go like, that's a cool connection.
I wouldn't doubt if Amanda Waller comes in and says something over the ear, to Frank.
Right. Yeah. But they're also going to make that movie specifically as just that is also your starting point into the DCU, and the same thing for Lanterns, and the same thing, but and I think the movies are going to be a bit more not like as
following, like they're kind of continuing the story more than the others,
but they're going to be like their own stories. They're going to be jumping off points, and they're going to be forced with every like different projects having different ratings, different styles, that they're going to force themselves to have to make it accessible for people as their first instance. And that goes for Justice League or whatever they end up doing in the future. I just think it's smart.
Yeah.
And it makes, and it doesn't hold people back from doing creative things.
Right.
Which is definitely what is needed.
Right. We need great stories over like a grand universe yet. Which like let's start with a solid foundation.
I've been saying that, but I feel like 2-3 years ago, people were like, well, I don't care about watching this movie if it's not connected to the rest of the universe. It's like, but that's a problem. Like, you're just following this like product at a point, and
you're watching like the longest television show in history.
Exactly. And like when people used to say, "Oh, they should have stopped it at Endgame," I was like, "No, there's so much more that we." And now I'm starting to get. I still think there's a lot of story to tell, but like as it's been going, I'm like, "Woo, we really got to shake things up a bit, people." Like, geez.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, no, it is. I know, but
no, but I agree.
Just for comparison stakes, like with the two big companies,
Yeah. And DC got their shakeup. They ended their last universe, and they're taking the bold step that the MCU couldn't do. So, even though I'm excited for the next two Avengers movies, but we'll see.
It seems a bit more. We're keeping things pretty status quo, but we might go back to like just great movies, and that's what they need to be, right?
Agreed. So totally agree.